So some plans, it goes till the end of the month that you turn 26. Some plans, it will be the day that you turn 26. And that's really dependent upon the individual employer. That's also what we call a qualifying event in the insurance industry, right? So it qualifies you to get coverage on another plan. So your first option could be that you want to change plans. Maybe you don't like the coverage you have through your mom or your dad, and you can choose to change plans. Your eligibility to your new job, or your insurance through your new job, is also a qualifying event. So you have 30 days from your qualifying event to move to your brand new employer's insurance if you want to.
Welcome, listeners. Today, we are pleased to welcome Carey back with us. She joined us a few episodes ago to share some information on how we can pick the right plan design for us and our family. And when we saw this listener question come in, we knew exactly who to go to. She has decades of experience in the insurance industry, and she's really skilled at breaking down complex information into chunks that even I can understand.
Welcome back to the podcast, Carey. It's been a minute.
Thanks for having me back.
So we invited you to join us because we have a listener question, which is very exciting that we have more than our family listening to us. So the listener asked, I'm 23 and still on my parents' plan, but I have a full-time job that offers health insurance. How do I switch when I need to? Do I have to switch doctors? So kudos to this 23-year-old for thinking about that. There's a lot to unpack here. So talk to us about what we call aging off a plan. And as a young adult, deciding when to switch from your parents' benefit plan to your employer's plan.
So great question. First of all, we have options. If you're 23 and you've gotten your first job, right, and they're offering health insurance, the great thing is that you have options. A couple of years ago, well, at this point, more than a couple of years ago, legislation was passed, which mandates that health coverage be offered for dependents until age 26. So you can stay on your parents' plan until you turn 26. Important to note is that you should ask your mom or your dad to go to their HR and ask, does my coverage end at the end of the month I turn 26 or the day that I turn 26? I see an ooh from Sarah.
Yeah.
So some plans, it goes till the end of the month that you turn 26. Some plans, it will be the day that you turn 26. And that's really dependent upon the individual employer. That's also what we call a qualifying event in the insurance industry, right? So it qualifies you to get coverage on another plan. So your first option could be that you want to change plans. Maybe you don't like the coverage you have through your mom or your dad, and you can choose to change plans. Your eligibility to your new job, or your insurance through your new job, is also a qualifying event. So you have 30 days from your qualifying event to move to your brand new employer's insurance if you want to. So that's your first option, right? Again, that's your choice. Mom and dad might be paying for your insurance, so maybe it would be cheaper for you to stay on their plan. But maybe you want to be independent, you want to be on your own. You can certainly choose to do that. So again, you have 30 days from the date that you're eligible on your new employer's plan. Some employers say, your insurance starts the first of the month after 30 days. That's what we see the most in the industry, but that can vary. So the day that you're eligible, you have 30 days to join the plan, and you can just drop off your mom or your dad's insurance. Okay, so that would be your first option.
So let me pop in and ask a question real quick, because we had a colleague who was younger and on her parents' plan, and it made sense because it worked because she was local, lived nearby the plan she was on, and she recently moved out of state. So I would think
that's an interesting segue because there's two more options, right?
Go.
Jumping the gun.
This always happens with Carey. She's got like the full story to tell, and I jump in before I finish listening.
I got options. So your second option would be to stay on your parents' plan And there's really two scenarios with this, or two options in staying on your parents' plan. The first is your job is where your parents live, right? Because we have to talk about a network or whatever health insurance carrier that your parents are covered under, and then the provider network attached to that particular carrier. So if you chose to stay on your parents' plan and you live in the same geographical area, right, nothing changes for you. You still have the providers that you've been seeing all along. Again, you can stay on that plan until the age of 26, as I said earlier. Check with your mom and dad's employer to see if the coverage ends the day you turn 26 or the end of the month in which you turn 26, because then that's your qualifying event to jump on whatever insurance you have through your employer. So you generally have 30 days from either the day you turn 26 or the end of the month that you turn 26 to jump onto your new plan, your own insurance plan, right? So that's option number 2. So nothing really changes in that scenario. I would like to mention that if, say you get married in the time span between when you're 23 to you're 26 and you have a baby, the baby is not covered under your parents' plan. So that is one caveat that I'll point out. But if you're single or if you're single and married, no big deal. Your spouse has coverage somewhere else. You can stay on your parents' plan until 26. The third option is what Sarah pointed out. So what if I move out of the area? So what if my job is not in the area that my parents are living in? So you can choose to stay on your parents' plan, but there's some considerations you need to take into account. So your provider network will stay where your parents are. So you need to be careful about that. But a couple of years ago, when they mandated age 26, they also said emergency coverage. So any medical claims incurred during an emergency have to be covered at the in-network level of benefits. So if you fell down and you broke your leg, I'm thinking of where we are now, I slipped on some ice, right? And I go to the emergency room visit would be covered in full. Emergency room visit would be covered at whatever the benefit level is for your parents, but it would be covered at the in-network benefit level. So you wouldn't have to worry about out-of-network benefits coming into play. What some people do is they might do that and schedule their annual physical visits when they come back into town to visit their parents. So that's something that you can do. But if you got sick and you had to go to an urgent care and you're obviously not living where the network is, the urgent care visit would go to the out-of-network benefit level.
Right.
Right. Another consideration, and this kind of gets into the weeds, but it's something to think about. If you take medication, so if you need a prescription, if I went to the urgent care because I had a cold and they prescribed me an antibiotic and that's where I was living, I can get it filled wherever I am, right? But if you're living out of the state that your parents' insurance is in, right? So you're living in different states. Generally speaking, physician prescribers are only permitted to write prescriptions in the state in which you're in. So let me give you an example. So say I'm living in New York, right? I live in New York State. And as the 23-year-old, I've moved to, say, Chicago, for example.
Ooh.
And I'm living in Illinois, and I see an urgent care doctor in Illinois, and it's not a problem. He can write me a prescription in Illinois. But if you're seeing your primary care physician for a maintenance medication, and your primary care physician is in New York, you cannot get a prescription filled in Illinois written on a New York prescription.
We're like, you can't see it, but we have the mind.
No one can see that our jaws are open, our heads are bobbing. This is the limitation of the podcast where you can't see all of the visual, there's so much to unpack here. I don't even think Jolene and I, as we were looking at the question, we were like, this would be a great one for Carey, but not even for all these other reasons.
So no, and when I'm 23, I'm thinking about happy hours and laundromat money. So
right. This is thinking about where do I get my nasal inhaler, right? Right. So as a 23-year-old, you're probably not on a lot of medications, let's be frank. But somebody like me, I have allergies and I was on allergy medication, prescription allergy medication at that age. So things to consider. See your primary care in New York, right? In this example, see your primary care in New York. He can write the prescription in New York, or you can use your mail order vendor for your pharmacy. Plans have mail order pharmacies available. It might still be that you might have to have the medication shipped to your parents' house because it's in New York State, but mom and dad can just mail it to you in Chicago, right? So that would be a way to work around that. But you need to be comfortable with potentially like not having regular services in whatever city or state that you might be living in this scenario.
Right. So even if a Walgreens is a place that's would take your prescription coverage, because the person writing the prescription might not be licensed in the state that you're in, doesn't mean you can get it filled, even though that pharmacy might be a pharmacy that you should be able to go to.
Right. It's a law that we don't really think about, right? Because we're sick, we go to the urgent care and we just go, they call it into the pharmacy that's down the street.
Yeah.
But in this scenario, you have a 23-year-old living in a different state in which, her parents might live in, or his or her parents might live in. And if you're getting routine care in New York, any kind of maintenance medications, it just would be more challenging to fill, but it's certainly doable if you used a mail order service.
Right.
So I gave 3 options, right? So your first option is you can stay on your parents' plan, right? And you're living in the area and it's really no change. Keep in mind, age 26, you need to figure out what 30 days is 30 days of the qualifying event from the end of the month or the day that you turn 26. Second option, stay on your parents' plan, but you live in different states. Kind of outline some complications that you might encounter with that. But again, certainly doable if you're young and healthy, right? Most 23-year-olds don't have chronic health conditions. And then the third option is just to switch. You can switch to your new employer's plan. You being qualified to join that plan is a qualifying event. So you can drop your parents' plan at any point 30 days after you're qualified for that.
Adulting is hard.
It is, but I have hope for the future that there's young people asking these questions.
Yeah, true story.
Yes.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
This podcast is brought to you by Nova Healthcare Administrators. Why did they let us do this? Because at the end of the day, every associate is driven to do what is right. We want what's best for our clients and their members, and we do a great job sharing what we learn with each other. Between our colleagues and business partners, we know a lot of kind, smart, and thoughtful people who we convince to share their tips with you.
Don't forget to leave a review, give us a like, or subscribe, but more importantly, share. We'll find the insiders, you share it with the outsiders.